The book of Numbers. The book of Numbers. Now, I like the book of Numbers because I like numbers if they're small numbers.
2 + 2 is 4.
Mm-hmm.
5 is 12.
A big number I convert into a small number. I'll take it down to the smallest number I can take. In the book of Numbers, we find several things, but definitely in there we find types of Christ. The Old Testament is Jesus Christ concealed. The New Testament is Jesus Christ revealed. And that's what he did when he showed up. For 40 days before his ascension, he went through and explained to them all the details of where he was in the Old Testament. That must have been a good seminar. 4 types. You find Jesus as the bread of life. In Numbers 11, verse 7 to 9, it says, "And the manna was as coriander seed, and the color thereof was the color of bdellium." And that's Numbers 11, verse 7 to 9. "And the people went about and gathered it, and ground it in the mill, or beat it with a mortar, and baked it in pans, and made cake of it, and taste was the taste of fresh oil. And when the dew fell upon the camp in the night, the manna fell upon it." Okay, so manna was provided, bread was provided from heaven. That was a picture of something. Jesus Christ shows up in John chapter 6, verse 57. He says, "As the living Father hath sent me, and I live by the Father, so he that eateth me, even he shall live by me. This is the bread which came down from heaven. Not as your fathers did eat manna and are dead." That is, manna was a picture of the real thing. I'm the real thing. "He that eateth this bread shall live forever." Jesus Christ is pictured as the water of life in the book of Numbers. Numbers 20, verse 11 says, "And Moses lifted up his hand, and with his rod he smote the rock twice, and the water came out abundantly, and the congregation drank, and the beast also." So they needed water. The water was there. Interestingly, it's the same rock, but we won't go into that. 1 Corinthians 10, verse 4, you see the real thing show up. He says, "And did all drink that same spiritual drink? For they drank of that spiritual rock that followed them, and that rock was Christ." Jesus Christ is also pictured in the book of Numbers as the serpent that's lifted up. In Numbers 21, verse 9, it says, "And Moses made a serpent of brass and put it upon a pole. And it came to pass that if a serpent had bitten any man, when he beheld the serpent of brass, he lived." In John 3:14, it says, "And as Moses lifted up the serpent in the wilderness, even so must the Son of Man be lifted up. And whosoever believeth on him should not perish, but have everlasting life." Jesus Christ is pictured in Numbers as the Star of Jacob. Numbers 24, verse 17. Numbers 24:17. Interestingly, this comes from Balaam. It says, "I shall see him, but not now. I shall behold him, but not nigh. There shall come a star out of Jacob, and a scepter shall rise out of Israel, and shall smite the corners of Moab, and destroy all the children of Seth." Okay, you find that in Luke chapter 1, verse 78. Here's this star showing up that's been prophesied in the book of Numbers. Luke 1:78. "Through the tender mercies our God, whereby the day spring from on high hath visited us." Okay, a day sprung from on high. 2 Peter 1, verse 19. "We have also a more sure word of prophecy, whereunto you do well that you take heed, as unto a light that shineth in a dark place, until the day dawn and the day star arise in your hearts." Revelation 2:28. "And I will give him the morning star." Revelation 22:16. I'm going too fast for y'all to find all this, but just listen. You can get the video if you want the notes. Revelation 22:16. I have sent mine angel to testify unto you these things in the churches. I am the root, the offspring of David, and the bright and morning star. Okay, that's good to know, because in Isaiah 14, I'll have to find something here. If you've got a fake Bible, you'll be able to spot it. Isaiah 14. And I should have brought one of my other Bibles tonight so I could look this up. Yes. In Isaiah 14, verse 12, it says, How art thou fallen from heaven, O Lucifer, son of the morning? You know what the NIV says? Morning star. Who's the morning star? We just read it. Jesus Christ, who was introduced in Numbers as being the one out of a specific tribe that's going to save Israel. Well, it ain't the devil. So you need the Bible that's got it all in there right. Okay, in the book of Numbers, we find another interesting, there's a main predominant story in this book, and that's the story of Balaam. And in that story, you find the name Balaam, Balak, and Barak. 3 B's. Do what?
Tongue twisters.
Yeah, tongue twisters. But the word Balaam shows up in the Bible 57 times. If you trace the word Balaam through your Bible, you'll find it. Throughout the whole Bible, it's used 57 times. Now that's very interesting, and I'll show you why. Balaam becomes the demise of Israel to a great extent. Now remember our numbers. 57. That's 5 and a 7. Okay? In chapter 1 of Numbers, we're given a listing of tribes and the number of people in each tribe. This is very time-consuming and tedious, but you'll be tickled pink if you do the exercise. You go through, you list the tribes, you list the numbers. Then you go to chapter 26 and do the same thing again. What you find is the grand total in Numbers chapter 1 is 603,550 is the people. And it will be 1,820 more than what you find in Numbers 26:51. Here's the difference in the tribes. While you would think that means all tribes lost some people, it's not so. Because remember, the word Balaam is used 57 times. So there's a 5 and a 7 that have to show up. 5 tribes, because when you're writing 57, 5 comes first. 5 tribes lose men. That'd be Reuben, Simeon, Gad, Ephraim, and Naphtali. 7 tribes actually increase. Those are the other tribes. Judah, Issachar, Zebulun, Manasseh, Benjamin, and Dan, and Asher. So that's just an interesting coincidence that God put in there for us to study and get excited when we did some work. Numbers 1, verse 3. Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's Numbers verse 1, or Numbers chapter 1 compared to Numbers chapter 26. Mm-hmm. Numbers 1 verse 3. It says, From 20 years old and upward, all that are able to go forth to war in Israel, thou and Aaron shall number by their armies. So we learned something. The age of an adult is the age you can join the army. For us, that age is 18. So, because we needed people to go into the military, we changed the age from 20 to 18. But according to the Bible, 18-year-olds shouldn't be going into the army. They should be 20, according to the Bible. We're just talking Bible here. We're not talking fantasy reality like we live in America. According to the Bible, 20 is the age. The other thing is the Bible sets the age as adult at 20, not at 18. So, just something to help you realize that America doesn't have a clue. Numbers chapter 2, verse 17. Numbers 2, verse 17. He says, Then shall the tabernacle of the congregation, then the tabernacle of the congregation shall set forward with the camp of the Levites in the midst of the camp. As they camp, so shall they set forward, every man in his place by their standards. So he's telling you something there. When they camp, the tabernacle's in the middle. When they move, the tabernacle's in the middle. So that tells us something. A Christian's life should center around his place of worship. The center of your life, if you're a child of God and you represent the people of God, you should have a close connection, and the center part, the main portion of your livelihood, the center of it, the heart of it, should be your church. Or if you go to a big church, it wouldn't be the church, because you can't fellowship with the whole church. It would be your Sunday school class or whatever it is. But your worship center, wherever that is, should be the center of a Christian's life. Not everybody out doing their own thing. There is something that holds it together. For the nation of Israel, the thing that held the whole camp together, either sitting or moving, was the tabernacle. Numbers 2, verse 18. It says, And on the west side shall be the standard of the camp of Ephraim, according to their armies. The camp of the sons of Ephraim shall be Elishama, the son of I've heard Scorby say it 1,000,000 times. Ammihud. This is Ephraim. Ephraim starts out good, as do all the tribes. They start well. Starting good is not really hard. Anybody can start well, but it's hard to continue well day after day. That's the hard part. That's the real hard part. It's harder still to start well, fail, get back up, and go again well. That's hard to do. I have more respect for somebody that falls and gets up and keeps going than I do for somebody who just won't move. In Hosea 7, verse 8, God has something to say about Ephraim.
It ain't good.
No, it's not good. He says, Ephraim, he hath mixed himself among the people. Okay, so he makes his friends the world. He makes his entertainment the entertainment of the world. What makes him happy and what he spends his chosen time to spend with is the wickedness around him. He says Ephraim is a cake not turned. He ain't fully baked. He's rotten. Yeah, he's not something you would want to eat. Yeah, half-baked. Jeremiah 7, verse 15. When God wants to threaten Israel, Ephraim comes up. Jeremiah 7:15. And I will cast you out of my sight as I have cast out all your brethren, even the whole seed of Ephraim. So if he's really going to threaten them, like in the old days when you knew you were in trouble was when your parents called your first, middle, and last name. Here he's calling all three of their names. He says, you know, like I did to Ephraim. So Ephraim was supposed to be the exclamation point to make them pay attention. In Isaiah 7, verse 8. Isaiah 7, verse 8. He said, "For the head of Syria is Damascus." Okay, that's the capital. "And the head of Damascus is Rezin. And within 65 years shall Ephraim be broken, that it be not a people." God's so mad at Ephraim, he says, "I'm going to make them cease from existing." He didn't like Ephraim. Ephraim started well. We start well too. Hopefully every morning we start well, because his mercies are new every morning. So you got a new batch of mercy. It doesn't matter how bad you messed up the day before. In the morning, you got something brand spanking new. New mercy that you've never seen before. That's a good thing. However, as the day progresses, things happen. Now, I don't have a whole lot of respect for somebody who pulls an Ephraim. They say, "Okay, I messed up yesterday, so today I'm not even going to do anything. I've already messed it up yesterday. What can I do now?" No, you messed up yesterday. Guess what? Today you got new mercy. Get up and run again. Don't be an Ephraim. Okay, Numbers 3, verse 40. Numbers 3, verse 40. It says, "And the Lord said unto Moses, Number all the firstborn of the males of the children of Israel, from a month old and upward, and take the number of their names." Okay, he's numbering to get a count. When he gets a count, he says, a month old and upward. Why a month old? Because that's what he said. So, I don't know if maybe there was a lot of death that happens from infancy to 1 month. And if you made it to 1 month, the chances are you're going to survive. I don't know. Who knows? But he says from 1 month and older. Now, if he's taken a number of the people, why is he only taking the males? Christianity, the Bible, is a masculine book. It's for males. You look at most churches, and it's not males that make up the most of it. It's become feminine. There's no reason for that. Because people aren't preaching the Bible, or people aren't reading it. The males, the men, aren't reading it. So they think it must be feminine. That's what the girls do. That's what women do. No, sir, open it up and read it, and you'll find out it's a very masculine book. It's not going to make you a sissy to read the Bible. In fact, it's going to do just the opposite. It's going to make you very masculine. Furthermore, women become better treated when men adhere to Bible. Look at the nations. In Saudi Arabia, women are not treated very well. They're property, and really considered less than property. It's because they don't have anything to do with the Bible. The Bible will give a man masculinity, and it will give a woman honor as a woman, as a female. In Numbers 3, verse 40, that's where we were. In Ephesians 5, verse 25, he says, "Husbands, love your wives, even as Christ also loved the church and gave himself for it." Okay, Christ is very masculine. You don't find anybody who can compete on his level as a man. Any of the great he-mans who think they're strong men, Rocky wouldn't even begin the fight. Jesus Christ was a man's man. And he says what a man does is loves his wife and gave himself for it. So, if a person will follow the Bible, it follows through that the women are going to be treated correctly. That he might sanctify it and cleanse it with the washing of water by the word, that he might present it to himself a glorious church, not having spot or wrinkle. So he provides for it, nor any such thing, but that it should be holy, without blemish. So ought men to love their wives as their own bodies. He that loveth his wife loveth himself. That's Bible. The Bible will make a man, and a woman will like it. So, both parties need to be involved in church, the man and the woman. And not just church, in the Bible. Now, it doesn't do you any good for both parties to go to a church that doesn't open the Bible. I mean, you might as well not have gone. You go down to the country club and do that. Numbers 4, verse 3. Numbers 4, verse 3. It says, from 30 years old and upward, even until 50 years old, all that enter into the host to do the work of the tabernacle of the congregation. Okay, so here's the Levites. Here's the people that are the ministers of the tabernacle, the things of God. And he says, I've put a cap on the age. Mandatory retirement at 50. Well, America doesn't like that, because that means we got to come up off of Social Security that we've been stealing. So we're going to push that retirement age to 65, to 68, to 73. It keeps getting pushed. There's a reason for it. Go back to legitimate things. God says you shouldn't join the army till you're 20. You should be retiring at 50. That's just Bible. I'm not making stuff up now. Okay, so they had a start time and an end time. The start time is interesting too. So you're a mature individual, adult, at 20 years old. Or you're an adult at 20 years old. I'm not going to say that's mature. You're an adult at 20. You begin to learn at 20. Now, he says that you can take an office at 30. So you're apprenticing for 10 years to learn something. Then at 30, you get to have some leadership. And it's interesting because that's exactly what happens in Luke 3, verse 23. And Jesus himself began to be about 30 years of age, being as it was supposed the son of Joseph. Okay, so Jesus Christ begins his ministry at 30 years of age, just like we saw in Numbers. Joseph does the same thing. Genesis 41:46. Genesis 41:46. And Joseph was 30 years old when he stood before Pharaoh, king of Egypt. That's when he gets his office, at 30 years old. David does the same thing. It happens too many times to be a coincidence. 2 Samuel 5, verse 4. And David was 30 years old when he began to reign, and he reigned 40 years. Okay, so we know the age that God intended. 30 years, 20 years, time to start training to be an adult. Kiddie things are over. 10 years, put your nose to the ground and learn something. Because in 10 years, we expect you to be doing something. At 30 years old, you take over and you start doing. Numbers 6, verse 3. Numbers 6, verse 3. It says, he shall, this is talking about alcohol here. This is good. It says, he shall separate himself from wine and strong drink, and shall drink no vinegar of wine, nor vinegar of strong drink, neither shall he drink any liquor of grapes, nor eat moist grapes, nor dried. Now he tells you something in that. The vine is the bad dude, the vine tree. You know, it wiggles around and crawls like a serpent. So it's the only tree condemned in the Bible. It's forbidden fruit all the way through the Bible, just like what Eve got when she was in the garden. Number 6, verse 4. It says, in all the days of his separation shall he eat nothing that is made of the vine tree. He calls it a tree. From the kernel even to the husk. The Nazirite vow is a period of time in which the Nazirite separates himself from certain things. Off limits is the vine tree. It's bad news. Samson, of course, we saw him go through the whole rigmarole with that, and he did take of the vine when he shouldn't have, and he touched some dead things and did some things that he shouldn't have, and God winked at it for a little while, but then his destruction came. So just because you think you've done a little something and you've gotten by with it, don't be so sure about it. Samson thought he did too. Let's see. Number 6. Okay, we'll end on this, I think. Yes. Number 6, verse 23. I got one positive note in this whole thing, so we'll have to end on it. Numbers 6:23. Speak unto Aaron and unto his sons, saying, On this wise ye shall bless the children of Israel. So everybody's getting this same message. God told Moses to tell Aaron and his sons, and them to tell all the children of Israel. Everybody gets this same message. Here's the message. On this wise shall you bless the children of Israel, saying unto them, The Lord bless thee and keep thee. The Lord make his face to shine upon thee, and be gracious unto thee. The Lord lift up his countenance upon thee, and give thee peace. And they shall put my name upon the children of Israel, and I will bless them. Now that shows you something. That's a message direct from God. Moses didn't make that up. Aaron didn't make that up. Aaron's sons didn't make that up. That was God saying, here's my message. Be sure everybody learns it. So that tells you the intent of God's heart. God intends good for you. Now, Joel Osteen has one thing right. He doesn't have anything else right, but God does intend good for you. He really does, if you follow what he says. Now, he's not just going to overpower his own rules because he intends good for you. He's not going to say, well, because I want to do good for you, I'll violate all my own rules. He's not going to do that. But he's saying, I want to do so much good for you, just do these things right here. In Deuteronomy, where were we? Yeah, Deuteronomy 4, verse 31. Deuteronomy 4:31. Here he's saying, even after you've messed up, come back to God because of this verse right here. Deuteronomy 4:31. For the Lord thy God is a merciful God. That one the devil wants to hide from you. The second you mess up, he reminds you of every verse in that Bible on condemnation. And he will never remind you of this. Turn to him and he'll be merciful. Don't turn to him and he won't be. It's all up to you. Turn to him. He's full of mercy. He will not forsake thee, neither destroy thee, nor forget the covenant of thy fathers which he sware unto them. In Jeremiah 29, verse 11, God talks again. Jeremiah 29:11. For I know the thoughts that I think toward you, saith the Lord. He says, you don't know what I'm thinking. I know what I'm thinking. Let me tell you what I'm thinking. Saith the Lord, thoughts of peace and not of evil, to give you an expected end. Okay, that's God's mind. You want a piece of God's mind? There it is right there. In Malachi 3, verse 2. He says, Malachi 3:2, but who may abide the day of his coming? Talking about Jesus Christ coming back. And who shall stand when he appeareth? Okay, let's think about it. Who's going to be able to stand before that? Well, I know some people that can. He says, for he is like a refiner's fire and like a fuller's soap. Okay, so something can last through a fire. You know what it is? It's gold. Okay, so in Job 23:10, he says, but he knoweth the way that I take, and when he hath tried me, I shall come forth as gold. Okay, he knows his plans for you. Plans to prosper you, give you a good end. Okay, the good end is I'm going to burn out all the chaff. What we're going to be left with is not 99.9%, but 100% pure gold. In 2 Chronicles chapter 9, 2 Chronicles 9, verse 17. This is Solomon setting up his ruling place here. It says, moreover, the king made a great throne of ivory and overlaid it with pure gold. God likes gold. He does. That's why he's going to purify us and make us like gold. He's going to make us perfect.
Didn't they make the Ark of the Covenant
They covered it in gold. Yep. Yep. In fact, the streets are covered in gold in New Jerusalem. So that's just the way I like it. Donald Trump ain't got nothing on me. I'll show him how to like gold. He'll make a Persian empress look like they're, in the slums. He knows what he's doing. Now, he's going to do the same thing to his people. His people are precious to him. So he says, the thing you think is precious, gold, I'm going to make you resemble that pure. So we know his thoughts. We know the things he's planned. Sometimes the fire is not to hurt us. It's to purify us. Because we know the way he thinks. So when life gives you a furnace, don't imagine God means evil. Sometimes the furnace is there intentionally from God. He says in Isaiah, I chose them in the furnace of affliction. The furnace is not intended for your hurt. It's intended for your purification. Because God has good thoughts toward us. All right, that'll end it for tonight.